Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Insightful Ramadan. Picture this. You're at a function with your child and they're crying and throwing a fit. Can you relate to this? If you can, then this episode is for you, for we are going to talk all about tantrums and meltdowns. Hello again. Many times, tantrums and meltdowns look the same way when a child has them. For example, they're crying, they're getting angry, they're throwing a fit, they're running away, or they're even beating you up. So how can you know whether it's a tantrum or a meltdown? So what are tantrums? Tantrums essentially are outbursts that a child has because they want something or need something, but they're not getting it. For instance, if a child is crying because his mother is paying attention to his sister and not to him, that's more likely a tantrum. A tantrum is usually caused due to attention-seeking behaviors, learning difficulties, or ineffective communication from the child. Let's see what meltdowns are on the other hand. Meltdowns is a result of sensory overload. When a child has too much to process in the environment, they can get overwhelmed and suddenly start crying, and there's no consoling them after. For instance, if the child is at a marketplace with you, a busy marketplace, and there's so much noise, there's so many people around, there's so many choices to choose from, they can get easily overwhelmed and start crying. Now that we know a little about what tantrums and meltdowns are, how can we differentiate them? Tantrums are usually purposeful behaviors, meaning their cause is easily identifiable. The parent can tell why this tantrum occurred. Whereas in meltdowns, there could be multiple causes. They could be because of a sensory overload, so there's just too many sensations to process. During a tantrum, a child may even have control over their behavior. They can stop in between just to see if you're paying attention to them. Once they see that you're looking at them, they can continue with the tantrum. This is different in a meltdown. Even if you give the child what they want when they're having a meltdown, they won't stop crying because they don't have control over that behavior anymore. And lastly, tantrums are usually caused as a result of learning difficulties or children not being able to effectively communicate their needs. Whereas meltdowns are usually caused as a result of sensory processing disorders like autism. So they're more commonly seen in conditions like children with autism. Now that we know what tantrums and what meltdowns are, let's see some of the strategies that we can practically imply to manage the two. There is very little that you can do during a tantrum or a meltdown, but you can control a lot that happens before it and after it. Let's see some of the ways we can control the situation before a tantrum. Number 1, establish a routine. Children love predictability. They love it when they know what to expect throughout the day. If, for instance, you just tell your child to go to sleep at any random time in the night, they're less likely to abide by that. They're more likely to show some rebellion. But if you tell them that 8 p.m. is bedtime, then they have that predictability. They know that by 8 p.m. I have to go to bed, so I can do this, I can play throughout the day, and at 8 p.m. I have to go to bed. That way they can plan their day just like we do. Number 2, teach your child the skill of compromise. My earlier example where the boy was crying because his mom was paying attention to his sister. You could look the boy in the eye, acknowledge his emotion, tell him, I know you're upset, but Let me listen to what your sister has to say, and then I will get back to you. That way the child understands that they will have a chance, but they have to wait. So teaching them that concept will really be effective. Number 3. Try to understand the child from their perspective. Sometimes when a child has an emotional outburst, it could be understandable. For instance, if the child is playing with a puzzle and there's just 3 pieces left, but you're getting late and you have to run out, so you quickly grab the child, grab his toys, his puzzles, put it in the bag and just go out. If they cry, I think it is kind of acceptable. Why? If you are in the child's place, just think of it this way. Children love it when they finish an activity. They feel a sense of success when they complete it. So if you just deny them that pleasure, then it is very likely that they will start crying. What you could do is establish smooth transitions. How do you do that? Set timers. For instance, you can tell your child that, okay, you have 15 minutes to play with this puzzle. The moment 15 minutes are over, we have to go out. We have to leave. And for children who are younger and do not understand a sense of time, you could use timers. You can tell them when you hear the bell, we have to go. That way it will be more effective and they will be ready for it. And lastly, establish boundaries with your children beforehand. Prepare them for what to expect. If you're taking your children to a shop, before you take them inside, you should tell them what you're expected to buy. I just want groceries and some things for the house. We're not going to buy candies or toys. That way, the children know that what to expect, that they're not supposed to go inside and buy the toys and whine about it. So they're more ready and prepared for that. Now we know what to do when a child is having a tantrum. Let's see how we can deal with a meltdown. With a meltdown, it's pretty straightforward. The reason why the child is having that meltdown is because of that sensory overload. It's because they are overwhelmed by the environment. There's just too much to process. So what you could do is you could take the child to a quieter place where there is less sensations, there is less disturbance, and that way they can learn to calm down. Avoid verbally telling them what to do, because when you verbally tell them what you want them to do, you're expecting them to process that information and they're already having a hard time doing that. What you could do instead is practically show them what you want them to do to calm down. Taking deep breaths, for example, or counting to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you're actually doing these things in front of the child who is having a meltdown, they can see how you're doing it and they can use those ways to calm down. We've seen what to do before these behaviors, tantrums and meltdowns. Let's talk a little about what to do after. This is very important. After the child has had this behavior, we really need to reflect and think about how we could have avoided this situation. The first and foremost thing is to identify triggers. Try to think of what caused that tantrum and try to see whether it was a reasonable thing. If it was, see how you can avoid it the next time you go to a similar gathering. Number 2, you can sit with your child when they're in a good mood or when they're back to normal, and you can discuss this. You can tell them that you had a hard time today. I saw that you were upset. I saw that you were sad. I saw that you were crying. And then that way you can teach them how better to communicate their needs with you. Try to teach them simple words. For example, all done. So once you're done with an activity, you tell them, we say all done and we go, or we say bye-bye. So simple words can really be effective in teaching children how to deal with big emotions. So the next time you're at a function with your child and they're having an outburst, you know exactly what to do. On that note, thank you for watching. See you next time.
Stay tuned every Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click on the bell icon.